Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, Capital Markets Analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. We're going to dive into top 10 cannabis industry news stories of the week, starting with number 10, that President Trump's new budget proposal could hurt the cannabis legal industry or regulated industry. So the administration's fiscal 2021 budget proposal looks to be targeting cannabis states' rights by seeking to end an existing policy to protect states' legal medical cannabis programs from interference by the Department of Justice, as well as an additional provision that would continue blocking D.C. from regulating its adult use cannabis market. I'm not entirely convinced this isn't political. I've heard both sides of the story that they're going to continue moving forward with allowing for states to do their own thing. I think this is put in there for his reelection campaign for conservatives. I don't even believe that this is a reality. I don't think that they're going to try and stop the flow of funds, the sales revenue. I think this is just fodder. Number 9 is that psilocybin magic mushroom dispensaries could become a reality in North America. The psychedelic substance such as psilocybin mushrooms could follow a similar path as cannabis. The growing psychedelic reform movement taking place in the U.S. and Canada has many pondering the reality of magic mushroom dispensaries in the not too distant future. We spoke with a couple attorneys in B.C. and locally at the World Trade Center about their own investment interest in the psilocybin space. Dr. Allison Drayson of the Ames Institute is working on this as well. And so there's some interesting stuff about, PTSD and depression and just resetting the brain. So I'm interested to see kind of where this goes. Number 8 is the top Mexican senator says that cannabis legalization will be approved this month. So Congress has until the end of April to legalize cannabis, but hopes it does that this month. The top Mexican lawmaker said that the nation's Senate will vote on a bill to legalize marijuana by the end of this month. So that could be huge. If Canada's already legalized and then Mexico legalizes, that creates a legalization sandwich. And I think, DC is going to, see the revenue even more so from the Mexican market, which is very, very conservative because of the war on drugs down there. A lot of Mexican gangs and, just from cocaine to cannabis has been an issue for a long time. And so they're very hesitant the people of Mexico are very hesitant about legalization because all they've seen is murders and deaths. So if we can come at it from a holistic standpoint and make this finished products and take away that revenue from, some of these cartels, I think that could help. Number 7, how much cannabis each state sold in the first month of legal sales. So out of 9 states with legal cannabis, which state earned the most in the first month? Well, Illinois sold $40 million of cannabis in the first 31 days of recreational sales. So where does that $40 million first month legal cannabis sales rank all time around other states? All right, so Colorado had 14 million, Washington 3.2, Oregon had 13.9, Alaska had 750,000, Nevada had 27 million, California 114 million, Massachusetts a little over 9, Michigan over 6, and Illinois at 40 million. Both Vermont and Maine have legalized but don't have adult sales marketplaces set up yet. Almost $250 million between these 9 states. It's not bad. It's over $200 million. Pretty good start for the first week for all of those individual regions. So after a rough 2019, California's cannabis industry will boom in 2020. That's number 6 on the list. California's pot industry is the largest in the nation, but it remains tightly constrained by regulations. One of the biggest constraints in California's legal industry has been the widespread prohibition of cannabis businesses in local municipalities. So cannabis is legal statewide, but 67% of the state's local jurisdictions do not allow retail stores, and that's starting to change. Cities and counties are beginning to compete and attract cannabis dollars. Kind of the same thing we've been seeing in every other rollout of regulated states. Washington had its own issues with, different cities and different places not wanting to allow for whether it was a cannabis cafe or retailer, you name it. We're having issues to this day with counties that don't want to allow producers to go in there. So if it competes with wine, the neighbors want to say it smells so that they can't open up, and always an issue with regulations. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Number 5 is large cannabis companies are looking to debt funding versus equity and sale leaseback deals. So falling pot stock prices, they made equity less attractive or funding for cannabis companies. So big marijuana companies in the US are increasingly turning to debt as a funding tool, spurred by the falling cannabis stock prices in terms that are more attractive than those for real estate sale leaseback deals. So multi-state operators like Cureleaf Holdings, Cresco Labs, they've led the way by announcing debt raises of up to $300 million and $200 million respectively. Acreage Holdings, they joined the bandwagon with $100 million through a credit facility with an unnamed institutional investor, probably a bank that didn't want to put their name out there. And so this is interesting because we're kind of going back to like 2015 when people were taking debt and not equity because they didn't think that equity position would turn into anything. So an interesting regression, if you will. Washington never really had the opportunity to buy property, plant, and equipment. They don't have the public marketplaces like Canada did to bring that capital back down and start buying up, hemp companies or giving Cureleaf way too much money to spend $800, $900 a pop and pay too much. So they're going to be looking at value now. And apparently debt is the vehicle in which they're going to be moving forward, more of a regression. But yeah, the lending requirements or the lending environment is getting more and more restricted. And so it's going to be all about profitability. Are you creating revenue? If not, I can't imagine that you're going to get new investors. More than likely, it's going to be somebody throwing good money after bad because they want to see it continue. But time will tell. Number 4, Ontario launches consultations on expanding cannabis business opportunities. The province is looking to move more choice of consumers and more business opportunities. So the government's launching consultations to provide consumers with more choice and convenience on cannabis while giving the private sector an enhanced ability to compete against and combat the criminal market. I think more choice and more business opportunities is just allowing them to open up more rec shops. I think that Canada is still very, very limited on how many shops they can have, especially in BC. I was up in Vancouver just recently for the Lift Expo, and there are not a lot of stores right now. So even a year after opening, BC was probably the slowest rollout. I know Ontario with Toronto, people are complaining about not having enough choices and opportunities. That just seems coast to coast up there. Number 3, the head of the Border Patrol Union admitted that legalizing cannabis will force cartels out of the market. So head of the union made remarks during an appearance on C-SPAN that states that legalized cannabis are disrupting cartel activity. Yeah. We know. Number 2, medical cannabis business opportunities could swell in several states this year. Several states could expand their medical cannabis program in 2020 through new laws and regulations. So potentially that could include Minnesota, Iowa, Arkansas, Florida, Maryland, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. So the director of state policies for the Marijuana Policy Project said that just about every medical marijuana program has been slowly expanding and improvement, and they think that those trends will continue. And the number 1 cannabis news story of the week is the demand for psychedelic investments continue to grow. There's a new IPO slated. So we've kind of talked about this a couple of times with Bruce Linton, previous CEO of Canopy Growth, and Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary getting involved. So you have to stay tuned for more of that. So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.